For those that have had the pleasure of reading Audrey's books will have read the adventures of a certain large engine. It's no secret that Gordon is my favourite character, and in the story, Gordon goes foreign. Gordon tries to set the record straight with a big city engine about the name of London Station. While the ending did little to prove Gordon's point, the station is certainly the first station that many think of when going to London. So today we're going back to Gordon's roots and to look at his first ever home, King's Cross Station. The site in which King's Cross Station resides has for the better part of 2,000 years been famous. Queen Boudica led a British Iceni tribe against an uprising against the Romans in 70 AD. Boudica was rumoured to be a fierce leader and rebelled against the Romans' takeover of England. The Queen led her army to an ancient crossing called Broad Ford, near the River Fleet. According to the legend, the Queen fell at this last battle and was ultimately buried. The area was known as Battle Bridge in the battle's honour, and over time, people settled and a small village was formed. The village was popular, and in 597 AD, a group of monks decided that Battle Bridge would be the perfect place to start the conversion to Christianity, and even today, St Pancras Church is the oldest place of Christian worship in Europe. Fast forward to the 1850s. The city of London was growing and encroaching on Battle Bridge's outskirts. The village had now grown. It was small, but it offered haven for weary travellers from the hustle and bustle of the London streets. It remained practically untouched until 1756, when the new road, known as Euston Road today, was built. New Georgian buildings vastly developed the small village. They were low quality, but it did include a new hospital that specialised in smallpox. In 1820, the village reaped the benefits from the growing canal network. The Regent's Canal brought in new businesses, and the village was swallowed by growing industries and factories. Battle Bridge quickly became polluted and tarnished. In an act to rejuvenate the area, a statue was erected to King George IV in 1830. The statue didn't last long and was the subject of a lot of ridicule. It was removed just 12 years later, but the name the locals gave the area, King's Cross, stuck. The success of the city and the success of Euston prompted the Great North Railway to look for a new terminus as close as possible to the city without breaking the law that railways were forbidden in the centre. The Great North saw an opportunity in the polluted factories at the King's Cross and bought the area. They purchased the land to the south of the canal and the land to the north. It was hoped to develop the land to the south side and open a goods depot and a locomotive hub on the north. In 1850, the first passenger station opened to the public. It was a temporary station, while the main station was being constructed. The smallpox hospital, which was in decline following the introduction of the smallpox vaccine, was demolished. Senior architect and resident engineer George Turnbull helped plan the first 20 miles of track out of London, and helped plan the station layout with the detailed designs and elaborate fixtures designed by Lewis Cuthbert. Lewis had been a very well-known family of designers. His two brothers Thomas and William were responsible for some of the most beautiful and grandest buildings in the country. Osborne House, a favourite of Queen Victoria, and Crystal Palace, which housed a great exhibition and some of Cuthbert's greatest designs. On the 14th of October 1852, after spending £65,000 on the land and £123,000 on the construction, the new station was opened to the passengers for the first time. Even though the station was the largest station in the country at the time, it only used 2 platforms for its passengers. The rest of the station was used as carriage storage. But like York Station, the designers anticipated that the station would get busier as time went on. One bottleneck had to be sorted though. The gasworks that had taken residents nearby had built a tunnel underneath Regent's Canal. This single track took all goods and passenger traffic. Commercial traffic also had to cross on the level running lines to the goods yard on the south side. The only way to solve the issue was to build 2 further tunnels and build a new skew bridge which opened in 1892. It was far from perfect, as King's Cross was the only terminus that was forced to close in bad weather due to the flooding of these tunnels. The railway station continued with little incident right up until the grouping. During the First World War, the station suffered no damage, but the station was responsible for hiding trains in tunnels during air raids and handled explosives. The Great North Railway merged into the LNER, and with it, the LNER inherited King's Cross. The station was in bad need of improvements, with little being done since its construction. The LNER made improvements to the public amenities. The tunnels were vastly improved and were remodelled, and new signalling allowed for more local trains. The station quickly became the main terminus for its main line to Doncaster, York, Edinburgh and Glasgow, and the station became home to many of the LNER's Premier class engines. The A3 and the A4 class were regularly housed here in preparations for their long journeys. On the 1st of May 1928, Flying Scotsman, fresh from the Great Exhibition and being the poster boy for the LNER, was given its first ever corridor tender. This change in crews without the engine needing to stop allowed for the first time ever to run non-stop from King's Cross to Edinburgh, reducing journey time to an impressive 8 hours, and the journey was clocked as the longest non-stop journey in the world. The station was tested on the outset of World War II. As well as helping the evacuation effort, the station handled large troop trains. The effect of the lack of materials had an effect on the trains. Engine shortages crippled the lines, meaning that longer and longer trains had to be arranged, some carrying up to 2,000 people at a time. On the 11th of May 1941, the station took its first direct hit. 2 1,000-pound bombs hit the station. The station roof partially collapsed, and the explosion destroyed the offices, booking hall and a bar, and partially damaged a waiting newspaper train waiting at the platform. The explosion sadly cost the lives of 12 people and injured scores more. After the war, the area began to show its age. Industries abandoned factories nearby, and crime began to run rife. Nationalisation and dieselisation helped try to rejuvenate the station, but the end of steam and the rise in road transport saw an end to the goods yard and top shed. Demolition of the top shed began shortly after the end of steam, and the goods yard followed shortly afterwards. At the same time, plans were being drawn to electrify the lines. British Rail saw the opportunity to modernise the station and built a single-storey concourse and ticket office. The new section was built over the front of the station, covering Cuthbert's original works. It only meant to be temporary, but it was still there over 40 years later. On the 10th of September 1973, a teenager entered the booking hall at 12:24. They threw a large bag into the hall. The bag exploded, shattering glass and destroying baggage trolleys. In the confusion and panic, the youth escaped. 45 minutes later, a second bomb exploded at Euston Station. This time, the public were not so lucky. 13 people were injured. The youth, however, was never found, but it was established that the IRA were responsible for the attack. The electric lines in the 80s paid dividends when the Intercity 125s came into service, replacing the outdated diesels. The Intercity caused a passenger resurgence. The new Channel Tunnel plans would have facilitated for new underground platforms, but the plans were abandoned in favour of a new overground terminal at nearby St Pancras. In the 90s, the area was fastly becoming a hotspot for criminals and drugs, and the area needed a much-needed clean. The privatisation of the railway saw the GNER take over for the first time. It refurbished the trains and the carriages. It passed to the National Express East Coast in 2007, but after the National Express expressed no desire to fund the railway any further, it was handed back to public ownership once again. The railway ambled on, but little was done to the station or the stock. The station and railway were handed back to private hands, and yes again. Virgin Trains East Coast invested heavily in the new trains, but the company was forced to cease trading in 2020 when the franchise failed to make a profit. The line and station were transferred to the LNER, a new company, and created in the wake of the failed operator. The station itself remained the property of the Network Rail, and in 2005 a £500 million restoration plan began. The station shed roof was reglazed and restored, and the 1972 extension was removed, revealing Cuffnit's beautiful fronts once again. The extension was replaced with a stunning open-plan structure with a unique glass roof. John McCaslin, creator of the roof, designed the new exit to improve passenger flow, with many referring to the new roof as a reverse waterfall. Much of the old industrial areas have now been revamped, and many old areas have been repurposed for housing and offices. There's still a lot to do, and the work is ongoing to open a third tunnel again. The station has been mentioned in many books and has played host to many backgrounds and to shows. The station is most famous for being a portal to the magical realm on the Harry Potter series. Platform 9 3/4 could only be accessed through a brick wall between platforms 9 and 10. Following the success of the books, many fans tried to find this portal walls but were disappointed that the brick archway simply doesn't exist. J.K. Rowling admitted that she was thinking of Euston Station instead of King's Cross, but it was too late to change. In order to avoid disappointment and to stop wayward fans blocking the platforms, a part luggage trolley was installed near the annex near the platforms 9 and 11. It is now situated away from the platforms next to the Harry Potter shop. King's Cross Station has several unique quirks, making it a truly unique station. It's one of only 2 stations in the country to have a platform 0, the newest one being Leeds. And you can control the fountains to play the popular snake game from your mobile, or you can sit and watch the world go by and watch the 136,000 daily passengers rush about below. It truly is a fascinating station, steeped in history, and it's well worth a visit as a gateway to the city.